participant. It gives me immense pleasure to be your host today. Welcome to International E-Conference organized by Government College of Education, Nanded. Today's topic is the impact of explicit teaching of communicative strategies, which will be presented by eminent keynote speaker Haneen Adnan from Lebanon. Welcome, ma'am. I would like to introduce Haneen Adnan, madam. She is language instructor and course leader of English department at Modern University for Business and Science, Lebanon University, Faculty of Pedagogy. Now I request Haneen Adnan, madam, to present today's topic, that is the impact of explicit teaching of communicative strategies. Madam, you may please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the great introduction. Thank you, Ma'am Vanetta. Thank you, Dr. Bitkar, for this invitation. First, I would like to introduce myself before I start. I'm Ms. Haneen Adnan. I'm a holder of a research master degree in education and training from the Lebanese University. I have been teaching English language for ESL learners for more than 10 years. And this includes different cycles 3 and 4, and also undergraduate students. Today, my presentation, as you have mentioned, is focused on the impact of explicit teaching of CS on ESL speaking proficiency. I'm going to introduce my topic, then I'm going to present my master thesis that includes the research action in order to share with you the research process and the outcome. Now I'm going to share my presentation. Okay, are you able to view my screen?
Yes.
Okay, clear. Just let me have. Are you able now to view my screen? I'm just checking because I'm having the slideshow. Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with an interesting fact. Did you know that the English-speaking world encompasses 88 countries and territories where English is either an official, administrative, or a cultural language? This is an updated map of the English-speaking countries, and the number is increasing day by day. Thus, the English language is being spread as a global one and is regarded as one main medium of communication in different sectors, such as education, industry, trade, and services such as banking and tourism, according to Mercer et al. 2019. Hence, ESL and EFL learners need to meet the professional and academic demands by becoming bilingual and speaking the global language, as Crystal puts it in 2003. However, for our learners to learn the language, they have to deal and overcome many language barriers. So, learning a language is not an easy one. It is a demanding and a challenging process, since learning it, as I said, it dictates overcoming many challenges. What are these challenges? These challenges can be summed up, or the main ones are the lack of motivation, lack of confidence, pronunciation, limited reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills, in addition to the different learning styles. So I think you have noticed as instructors, and me too as a practitioner, that our learners might not be enthused to learn but feel embarrassed and somehow frustrated. Moreover, they do not venture into the oral realm because they are afraid of committing errors and being denounced. As well, they feel demotivated because when they have breakdowns in communication, they are unable to repair, either because they don't know or they don't know what are the proper communicative strategies to use. Additionally, okay. Now, are you here? Okay. I'm going to stop sharing and reshare then. Sorry for that. Okay. Are you able now to view my screen? I ended the slideshow. Not yet? Okay. Let me represent. Okay, great. So, as I was talking, that students having limited reading, writing, and listening skills also face these barriers because their overall proficiency is affected by these limitations. For instance, having strong language skills aid in developing accurate pronunciation. I mean the listening and speaking. Similarly, having good reading and writing skills enhances vocabulary, and in turn at the end is going to also improve writing more and more. Okay. I have moved to this slide. Is it okay? Are you there? Great. This observation and my experience as a practitioner made me notice that not only learners in general, but in specific, as I have told you, they stumble when they attempt to communicate via alto. They have long pauses. They are hesitant. Their speeches lack fluency and automaticity. They get frustrated and demotivated, and they do not venture into the oral realm. This observation was not done only on personal, view, but also it was supported by many studies like Al-Khatib, Sulaiman, Zadornian, Abu Ras, and others. So this means this is not an outdated, but an up-to-date issue. This brings us to the how-to question. How did I, as a research master student and as practitioner, try to help my students overcome these barriers? One main approach was adopting the communicative language teaching approach, focusing on the communicative competence of my students in order to help them develop their proficiency as ESL learners. And here I want to give some characteristics so you would be familiar more with the communicative language teaching strategy. This teaching approach aims at intertwining all the language learning objectives. So I'm not focusing on accuracy only or on listening or on grammar and writing. I'm having a holistic approach. And this is done by having engaging and meaningful learning techniques in our classroom. These learning techniques highlight the communicative strategies, the tools that help students to communicate via alto. And this is done by designing tasks that equip students with the basic CS or the communicative skills. And this can be done by providing our learners not only with once, but with multiple opportunities to develop autonomous learning. So I don't need them just to carry out communication in classrooms. I need them to carry out communications in the real world. And for sure, this can never be done without having teachers as guiders and helpers for authentic linguistic interaction. So we need to bring the reality into our classrooms. The second thing that I want to highlight regarding the communicative language teaching is the theoretical framework, so we can know the background more. The communicative language teaching was influenced by three main theories. First, I have the Krashen's comprehensible input theory that was founded in 1982. It highlights that learners should be exposed to an input that should be clear, number one. Number two, it should be above the level of the learners, because only one, according to Krashen, these learners can uptake the language where the meaning conveyed is highlighted more than the linguistic form. The second theory, that is Swain's output hypothesis in 1985, this theory highlights that we have to provide learners with various learning opportunities so they can produce meaningful stretches of language, because only then or by giving these students such a chances, they can spring their linguistic ability and self-expression. In addition, they get feedback from their peers and teachers, hence they improve their accuracy and their automaticity. The last theory that impacted the CLT is the Long's interaction hypothesis in 1996. This hypothesis has bridged swains and depressions, and it highlighted the interaction between learners and teaching learners to take into consideration the qualities and the background of the other speakers. Thus, they make modifications to reach better understanding. In this way, we can help our students to take into consideration the register, the setting, the background, the topic itself. To wrap up, CLT, as Brown 2007, page 16 puts it, it's one way to have learners as fluent speakers who can communicate outside the concrete books by equipping them with the necessary communicative tools. Moving into the communicative competence, it goes under the branch of CLT because, as I said, my main aim is to enhance my learners' speaking proficiency and fluency. If you notice, the communicative competence has at its core, or its one fundamental basis, the communicative functions of language. Thus, I don't need only learners to learn the language, the grammar rules. I need the learners to learn language as a tool of performing, of reaching goals, of doing different functions like booking a table, booking, for example, a room, asking for directions, having medical, for example, consultancy, whatever. And this is done by having a direct practice of the communicative activities, and this is, supported by the names of the researchers here. One more thing about the communicative competence, if you notice, I have these 4 dimensions to the right of the screen. So the communicative competence is one holistic approach. So I'm not focusing on one, I'm not focusing on the other, because it has 4 dimensions that target the learner's grammatical and lexical capacity, social context of the speech or act or the event, the discourse competence, the elements of the message, who's the speaker, who's the sender, who's the receiver, what's the channel, what's the topic. And at the end, the strategic competence that includes the speaker's ability to initiate and a discussion, hold the ground, change a topic, etc. So when I use or approach my problem using communicative competence, I'm aiming at developing the accuracy of the students' performance oral, the fluency, and their automaticity. We need real thinkers in the world around. This leads me to the program that I have adopted, that is the CS training. What are these communicative strategies? First, the communicative strategies are tools, as I said, in relation to the communicative competence. But we need to know their specific definition. They are regarded as verbal or non-verbal means. But these means can be used not only by high achievers, but also by low achievers, and this is my main target. So they use them in order to tackle communication breakdowns and find solutions, either alone, uncooperative, or cooperative. So we're focusing on more interaction and also on autonomy, based on Cannell and Swain, 1980. These CS are regarded as instruments, as I said, to convey an intentional message. So my learners, while or after having this training, they are going to plan in advance to check the oral task they have to tackle, to know what's the problem, what are the difficulties facing them, so they would know how to deal with more and more complex tasks later on. According to me, I have adopted an interactional approach to the usage of the communicative strategies, because I needed learners, as I said, to interact, receive, interpret a message, rephrase, and mainly I need them to approach any speaking task as a cooperative exchange of ideas, of feelings, and thoughts, according to Brown, 2007. But this wasn't enough, according to me. I needed to find a way of instruction, and the suitable way that I found was EXPLICIT instruction. Why did I chose, or why I chose it? I chose it because this way of instruction is a systematic and direct, success-oriented teaching approach. It is a teacher-centered approach, but not in the negative implication, but in the positive implication. Why is that? Because it aims at helping novice, beginners, striving, and slow learners to gain and grasp new, complex, new content or graded material. And this is done by presenting for them novel skills or materials in small and guided steps or leaps. In addition, learners are provided with rules to practice a skill, so they are aware of what they're doing. They are aware of the rules they are using, and then they can consciously apply this data, this concept, or these rules in different situations. Thus, their conscious awareness, the speaker's side and the data the speaker possesses and the use of such data is highlighted. By having the EXPLICIT instruction and the CS training, hopefully I was able to aid and help my ESL learners to learn and use the target language successfully in order to move from a teacher-centered approach to a learner-centered approach where the learners are explicitly trained how to use a certain skill or data, when to use it, how to apply it. Now, I need to talk about the communicative strategies that I have chosen. Okay, I had the theory, I had the program, I had the instruction, the way of instruction. I needed to know or to have the material. Before I tell you which ones I have chosen, manipulating it, using it, so we can succeed as suits us, either mentally or physically, and also applying a specific technique. So we are selective, we are aware, we are monitoring as students, or our students are monitoring their own performance, according to O'Malley, page 138, 1990. The second group of the CS is called metacognitive, or the social affective strategies, and they are indirect ones. Why is that? Because they involve evaluating how well one has learned. So we have self-assessment, I have evaluation. So I would know what's wrong, I would know what I have to do better the next time I communicate. Also, it includes interacting with one another to help the others or to help oneself. In conclusion, based on these two groups or sorting, and the aim of my study, I have chosen 4 direct strategies and 4 indirect strategies in order to have a holistic approach to the oral performance of my students. I have chosen fillers, paraphrasing, resourcing, and seeking clarification as direct. Fillers, we mean, for example, like okay, etc., in order to fill in the gap and to gain time. Paraphrasing, it means using one's words to express oneself or resorting to our background information. Resourcing, it means using the new material, all the data or the notes that we have, and manipulating it for our own benefit. And also seeking clarification, for example, okay, did you mean that? And these are life skills. I have chosen as the indirect CS as a planning in advance because I needed my students to be able to get ready for any speaking task, any speaking performance. So they know that we have to have certain vocabulary terms, I have to get ready in some way or another to check the channel, etc. Problem identification, what are the difficulties or the challenges that I might face, and how can in advance have plan A and plan B. Also, they were taught to ask for help and to give help. So cooperation, unity, and more interaction. Based on the problem that I have cited as a practitioner and by the help of my professor, I was able to structure 4 main research questions, and it was a hard and a tedious research, action research. The 4 questions were: does CS training affect the learner's perception of strategy use? I wasn't only aiming for helping my students knowing and using the CS. I wanted them to change their perspective toward the speaking skill, toward the speaking task itself. And I needed them to be aware of the existence, maybe some don't know, of the existence of these CS and the importance of using these CS. So they are not demotivated. They are motivated instead to approach an oral task. Second question was that will the teaching, or does the explicit teaching of CS, the direct and indirect, help them to speak in a better way? Overall performance will be developed or not? The third question was that will such a training help these students acquire, grasp these CS and make use of them? And the last question was based on a comparison between the direct and indirect. I needed to know which one was more efficient, which one is more needed, especially when we are time constrained. Do we need to focus more on the direct communicative strategies or in the indirect on the indirect communicative strategies? In order to approach this problem in such a way, as recommended, I have chosen one methodology that's called the quasi-experimental design. Why did I choose that? Because I needed to develop an effective practice in the school environment, and this is supported by Miller's 2011, page 5. Additionally, my aim was to compare, as I said, the results of different groups of learners. And we move now to the participants, so you would know what I'm talking about more. My population was to have grade 9 or age 14, I think, learners. But we were in COVID, we had the lockdown. I had no access to classes on campus. Schools were closed. We couldn't move around. Additionally, the Lebanese public schools were on strike because my aim was to help the Lebanese public learners more than the private ones. I had to stop or to move to the online mode. So I had an emergency plan. I changed my mode or the channel, and I used the Microsoft Teams platform, and I have integrated technology in my research. So the only population that I had access to was 2 sections of grade 7 learners. I had I sorted them based on the school's division, one class as a control group and the other class as a treatment group. So I didn't have a random, let's say, assignment of the studies participant, but this was also positive because this meant that the students won't interact and the credibility of the study will be maintained. The control group was of mixed genders. Also, the experimental group, both the groups sat for Cambridge A2 test because I needed to check their proficiency level. I don't mean only the speaking, overall language level. So the control group was divided into a high-level subgroup and into a low-level subgroup. I had 2 high and 1 low based on the grades, the scores, and the number. Moving to the experimental, the same, I had high and low, but the treatment group was divided into 2 based on the CS being targeted. One group had a training in the direct strategies, that is the E2 group, and one group had training in the indirect, termed as the E1 group. So if you notice from this complex diagram, the proficiency is taken into account, the control group, the treatment group, and the type of CS is taken into account. We move now to the methodology. As I said, the students had a Cambridge A2 key test. After that, I gave both the groups the SIL questionnaire because I needed to know if they know about CS. I needed to know if they are able to improve their awareness of CS. This was given as a pre and as a post. Then both control and experimental groups, they had task performance, let's say assessment. And these were discussion made in groups, and all the discussions were recorded because they were done or carried using the breakout rooms in the Microsoft Teams. Recording helps me a lot to refer back, to have access, and to check their intonation, their pauses. So everything was taken into consideration when the assessment was there. In addition to the assessment and the observation, we had something called coding because we needed to check which CS were used by these learners. Did my students or the participants resort to the direct more than the indirect, or did they resort to strategies that I didn't target at all? Because as we know, we have something called strategic transfer. So students can transfer one strategy from one language to the other language. And on the long term, having this program can help students not only to learn the English language, but to be bilingual and trilingual. The assessment was done using two scales. First, the one to tell about the student's general ability to handle the discussion, and the second one to take into consideration all the elements of a speech, interactive communication, the resources that are used, the discourse management, and the pronunciation. For sure, I had colleagues helping me, so we would be credible. Okay. Let's delve into now the results. If you check this diagram, this diagram shows us that the explicit teaching of CS had a higher impact on the learner's ability, general ability to speak up and to handle the discussion. Okay, for sure the treatment groups were highly affected more than the control. However, the group that had a training in the direct communicative strategies performed better on the two levels of the oral performance, as a whole and specifically. Regarding proficiency levels, the high level group outperformed the low level only in Cambridge speaking bands, because then the pronunciation, the resources were taken into consideration. And this might be related to the richer linguistic background and resources. However, the opposite happened with respect to their ability to handle a discussion, mainly because they were able to compensate for their poor linguistic level by resorting to the high usage of CS. As I said, when we were observing and when we were coding, we identified some strategies that were not tackled in the experiment or the intervention. But the usage of these non-target strategies did not increase. On the contrary, it decreased. It showed a steady fall pattern. This means that the explicit instruction really helped to the learners to grasp the new target strategies, and it is needed to keep these as part of their repertoire. Regarding the different profession or proficiency levels, the E1 was more affected than the E2 regarding the low proficiency level. So we have to take different things into consideration: the linguistic needed resources, the mental load, the requirements of the task, etc. At the end of the results, I need to tell you that I did the analysis from different lenses. So I could base my conclusions and recommendations for future research based on a comprehensible and a holistic approach. I didn't only check the proficiency, as I said, and the others as mentioned. I took into consideration the willingness of the students to communicate, the total number of words, we counted the words, the effect of peer collaboration. Why is that? Khan 2005 reports that the learner's oral performance can be the result of a high willingness to communicate, let's say, degree. And when teachers focus on the learner's willingness to communicate by having the CS training, learners will hopefully be more likely to communicate in authentic situations using the L2. Regarding the peer collaboration, Davidson and Major 2014 highlight the importance of peer collaboration and explain that the degree of collaboration can affect the oral performance of our students in order to carry out the oral tasks while discussing and sharing information. So we as instructors, when we are going to do a speaking task in our classes, we have to take into consideration all of these features or aspects. Are the students motivated or demotivated? Is it necessary or better to have individual or pair work or group work? What is the total number of words increasing or decreasing? What is my task type? Is it really overwhelming or not overwhelming? Should I increase the difficulty of the task throughout the training, etc.? Reaching the end of my presentation, I want to talk about the conclusions that entail the limitations, the encountered hindrances, as I mean the challenges, the recommendations, and the future research. Regarding the limitations, I had to cut the time of training because of COVID and having online. I had to change the setting, and maybe some students were overwhelmed. It meant more work for me as a researcher. The number of the students was low, so we might need to carry on further studies by having more participants. The recommendation can be for curriculum designers, supervisors, coordinators, and language instructors. And we need them to incorporate and employ the CS training in language curriculum or curricula, to embrace the offered taxonomies and the materials so they can give their learners ample opportunities to practice the usage of CS. One future research can be having different learning settings, that maybe the same can be done, different stages, not only intermediate or grade 7 learners we can go for and have high school or uni students. Maybe we can use the speaking test in addition to the Cambridge speaking test to take into consideration the speaking level of the students and also their overall proficiency level. Maybe we can extend the training time of the students, and in our groups, we might have not separate proficiency levels as high and low, we might have mixed proficiency levels. Thank you for being attentive. Hopefully it was beneficial and enlightening. I'm open or ready for any question. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your studied and researchful presentation. Now I request all the participants, if they have any queries or if they want to discuss related to the present topic, I may request the participants to just raise the point.
Good evening. Good evening, madam. Very nice presentation. Myself, Dr. P.B. Pagare from Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Department of Education. My little bit question. how you select, which criteria prefer for selection of sample. Second, how can, if you select the control experimental method, which method you prefer, and how can you control all internal and external variables, please?
Okay. I might have missed some of your questions. First, you're asking about the control groups and the experimental groups, right? The selection of the participants. Okay. Regarding the control and the experimental groups, I have taken into consideration the proficiency level, and that there was no interaction between the control and the experimental or treatment group. I have taken into consideration the age, so they were all of the same age, same school, same background, same level. They were living in the same country, same region, so they had the same access to different resources. They knew each other, so they weren't shy, or they didn't face these social barriers when they are attempting or were attempting to cooperate in groups. Our selection also was based on the ability of the participants to access our online platform or the Microsoft Teams platform. Also, we used WhatsApp. We talked to the parents in order to follow up and catch with them in case someone missed or was not able to follow up completely with the intervention. For sure, I have mentioned that we have to take many factors into consideration. Maybe next time we can do not only the Cambridge test, because I did the Cambridge test to make sure that my students fill in either a high, fill in two groups, either a high or a low level proficiency. Other than that, I can do further a speaking test. So I don't only have the pre-speaking test and the post-speaking test. I also can have a test to check their speaking ability and maybe to compare the three together at the same time. So we could have more, let's say, credible and valid results. Hopefully I answered your question thoroughly.
Yeah. But ma'am, my question, one last question. If there are heterogeneous group, different background,
If there is
how useful for that heterogeneous group?
Can you please repeat your question? I just heard different.
No problem, please. If in class there are number of students, number of background, number of there are heterogeneous group, your recommendation is useful for that group? What do you think?
Yes, thank you. This is a very important and interesting question. When I gave the students this CS training and program, I taught them to be autonomous. I taught them to be aware. I taught them to be cooperative and to cooperate as learners, because one of the direct or one of the CS, targeted CS, was to help, to ask for help, to give help, to check understanding. So for sure, and we talked also about the importance of social interaction, and the direct strategies and the indirect ones encompass the social interaction of the participants themselves. So, and for sure, they are not going in the real world to be alone. They have to be immersed in groups. This is one way of living and interacting. So when I make my students aware of the resources, when I make my students know the strategies that help them to learn on their own and also to interact, they will be autonomous learners, and they are going to overcome social barriers and cultural barriers by employing the proper CS based on the targeted ones. For sure, this is a very important and interesting question. Thank you for addressing it.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Dr. Bedkar, sir, and I think good afternoon, ma'am, over there. A wonderful presentation you have made, and the communication is one of the very important aspects among the students, even a teacher requires communication. And I belong to medical field, so we are communicating with our patients, and patients are communicating with us. So communication is always bilateral. what I feel. The communication, before communication, there are many processes happening in the brain. Like, I get a concept first, I start meditating on it, I develop some ideas, and then I put forth in front of someone. So that's equally you will find, in the communication. No doubt the language is there, and the number of words what you are having to express yourself, that is also one thing. But I think that concept and that idea should be there. So the involvement of the listener is very important in the communication. So that is how we can communicate in a better and meaningful way with each other. So that is what I feel. That is my a personal opinion. So please comment on this. And I want to say something like, you have done a wonderful experimental study. 2 groups you made can be considered as a pilot study, right? A small size, but if on a larger scale, I think we'll get a different picture also. So statistically and graphically, you have presented very well. So that is a real scientific study what you are putting in front. So in our medical language, we call it as a randomized control trial. Randomly, we are selecting the population without keeping any kind of bias. And then you have done a study and you have used a technology. So definitely it has an impact, what we can see from the statistics. That is wonderful presentation, what you have made. Just comment what I said, and there is another thing is also there. There is another thing is also there. People are belonging to different socioeconomical strata. They belong to different languages. They belong to different cultures. And many of the time it happens that, the people who are coming from the different vocabulary media, they become little difficult. It becomes difficult for them to express themselves and explain themselves. So what do you think about this? So please comment. Thank you. Thank you very much. Otherwise, your presentation is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it, and I'm really pleasured that it met your expectations. Regarding the first about the mental load, when I deal with the communicative strategies and oral skills, I said at the beginning of my presentation, it's not approached as an individual task. It's approached as a cooperative exchange of feelings and ideas. So my students, when they learn, and we have a long list of CS, it's just a preliminary study, we can say, or one step, we are going to have other steps. Learners, when they learn these strategies, it's like asking for help, and it's like checking that others are understanding them. They are taking into consideration the listeners or the other intellectuals. Other than that, when we focus on developing the learner's critical skills, thinking skills, by letting them plan in advance, by making them check or think of the problems ahead, and preparing plans for meeting these breakdowns. So I am preparing them to comprehend and to interact, let's say, faster with any oral skill. This should not be implemented at one stage. This should be implemented at different stages. So it will be an intrinsic part of their repertoire. And for sure, it's going to be time consuming at the beginning. But if we move step by step and we are going to implement this along the way, I'm sure that learners are going to do better communication and check, okay, the learners or the other learners, let's say, background and cultural background. You asked me about the social economic status and the different and the cultural backgrounds. For sure, we are not teaching learners to be individual ones. We are teaching learners to interact. So when I ask for help, when I check if you understood me, when I check if I understood you well, it means I'm taking into consideration the others. Regarding vocabulary, this can be helped in one way or another. And for sure, I said I have to bring reality into classroom. So it's our aim. And duty as teachers and instructors to expose our learners to different cultures and to different, let's say, accents, different styles of the way or the way the language is used. So my students, and according to the field, if you are a doctor, we can focus on the jargon in relation to the medical field. We can focus on the jargon related to industry, to economy. So I think this is going to be a more specialized CS program training. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. What we are doing is, we are having a group discussion. So the weaker students and the stronger students are mixed together over there, heterogeneous mixed. And when they, we just initiate the topic, we are just a facilitator over there. And then we initiate the topic, and then there is a discussion goes on in between all those communications. So we try to find out, everyone should participate, and there should be a universal participation. And that is how we try to promote the communication level. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your presentation.
You're welcome. That's correct. And that's what Vygotsky says. Vygotsky focuses on the importance of social interaction and the students being exposed to an input above their level. So we as human beings, we learn by observation and we learn by interaction. And for sure, and this is our classroom about placing or having heterogeneous groups can be of great importance and of great efficiency to spring the learner's linguistic ability. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is Rajeshwar Katre. I'm the alumni of the Government College of Education, Nanded. So I have one question that in India, every state is having their own local language, and every learner thinks in their own local language. When they start, when they want to communicate, they first think in their own local language, and after that they translate into English. So that's the problem, that they cannot talk fluently every time. So how the problem can be solved to tackle the problem?
Okay, thank you. For sure, translation was one all but gold, we can say, means of enabling students to learn the language itself. And this can be used at the first stages or at the beginning in order to help learners be comfortable and motivated to learn the language itself. But at the same time, we have to have a standard, language or channel of communication in the classrooms, because they are for sure having the local language as one main means of communication. But at the same time, we can dedicate time to the standard English language, and we can teach them strategies in the local language so they can transfer these strategies to learn the English language, so we can focus on strategic transfer. And this is very important. As I noted, when I was doing the coding for sure with the other colleague and researchers that helped me, we identified some communicative strategies that were not targeted in our experiment. And this didn't pop up from nowhere. This was the result of the way they were taught, or they discovered a way to comprehend others and to deal using their native languages. So I don't need the teachers to just forget or ignore the local language or the native language of the speakers. We can work on the native language of the speakers, as we do in Lebanon, Arabic, English, and there are many studies that focus on the importance of having them good at English, good at Arabic, good at their local language, good at the foreign language or the second language. Thank you.
I have another question, ma'am. When we start thinking in English language, then we can speak fluently. But what about that they try to first think in Marathi and any other language, and after that they translate into English? So how it can be possible to think them in English language, and after that they speak fluently?
This can be done by exposing students to the cultural aspects of the English language. when we expose them to the cultural aspects of the English language regarding the way the English speakers say hello, say hi, the way they approach the job interviews, the way they dress, the way they interact. For example, in some cultures, they feel shy, or in some cultures, they feel it's not appropriate to have eye contact with the speakers or the interlocutors. So I need to teach them the different elements of a message. For example, the channel, eye contact, verbal language, non-verbal language. Starting with this, we can help students to not to think in their local language, and here we say Arabism, so start thinking in the English language, because for sure every English language dictates every language dictates a very certain way of thinking, behaving. We have different standards, we have different social, let's say, codes of behaving. So this could be one way. Hopefully it was a good answer.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening, all of you. Ma'am, you have given a very nice presentation. My question is, what is the role of non-verbal communication in meaningful interaction?
Okay, thank you. This is related to the thing I was just mentioning. Nonverbal communication is also very important. It holds the same importance as the verbal communication. We have to take into consideration our body language, the way we dress, our intonation, our tone. Because even if we don't understand the language itself, at least from the intonation, I can know if it is a question, if it is a statement, if it is an exclamatory sentence, there is a surprise, there is a shock. So teaching students the verbal and the non-verbal means of communication can help them overcome these language barriers and, let's say, be immersed and not feel they are isolated. On the contrary, they feel belonging to such as, for example, as a community, a new school, a new country. So we have the eye contact, we have the intonation, we have the body language, we have the facial expression, shaking hands. All of these are very important, and we take these into consideration by referring to the setting, by referring to the register, being formal, informal, the topic, the time, etc. So all are connected. We cannot, let's say, detach or isolate one part from the other. No, we have to take all of these. We have to have a holistic approach. But in schools, we have to go step by step, small leaps, as I said.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Dr.
You're
Sir.
welcome. No, I'm willing to continue. Go ahead, please. Sorry, repeat what I'm asked to do. Thank you. Okay, I would ask a question. We are of different cultures. We have different teaching and learning experiences. I want to know more about the problems. Do you face the same problems as I face with my students? Okay, how do you try to tackle them? Because it is it's of great importance to share our expertise together. For example, in my class, as I said, other than the training, I try to have different groups of different cultures, backgrounds. I vary the topic. The topic is interesting. I can move from an easy to a more difficult one. So I take into consideration the task type, it is demanding or not. we can have interesting topics. For example, my main question will be, if you were asked to go to an isolated, for example, island, and you had to choose only 10 things to take them with you, what would be these 10 things? So I have a problem, and the students would try to solve the problem. They try to select, they try to discuss, they try to sort them from least important to the most important. So I need to know, what do you think of the presented as, and what are the new ways that you can help me as a researcher to employ them in my classroom as well? Thank you.
Yeah, sir. So I want to ask ma'am one question, that I am a teacher educator, and I have come to notice that many of the students who are graduate in English language, they are not able to teach very well in the classroom when they want to teach in the classroom. Maybe just because the same, you have said that the cultural background is different, they come from different areas, regions, and that is why it is not possible for them to clearly teach in English. So to develop their proficiency, their competency, will your research will be helpful for our students who are studying in our country?
Okay. First, I would work on motivating the students. Second, I would focus on the importance of learning the language. The opportunities, for example, that they can have, the ample opportunities that they can have while or after learning the language itself. I try to find a topic that all of them agree to. I try to find, for example, simpler ways of interacting. Maybe I can start with a video. I can make them exposed more to the English language in class, as I have understood that you have learners unwilling to communicate. I model myself the teaching task. I commit mistakes maybe on purpose to tell them that it is okay to commit mistakes. We should not make fun of others or denounce others. And I might tell them about my journey while I was learning the English language. So modeling, I think, guiding, facilitating, helping, exposing students to different kinds of input, okay, and finding a common ground between them might be helpful. Other than that, I would check their personality, their characteristics. So I would build my groups or structure my groups based on their personality, being an introvert, being an extrovert. I can assign them different ways of expressing themselves, because I said it's not only speaking. Listening, speaking, writing, and reading are all complementary skills, and they all help to reach the common goal or the target goal, that is being fluent speakers. But because as teachers, we mainly focus on reading and writing. And if we check the history of teaching language, reading and writing were the most prominent skills, whereas listening and speaking were not given such prominence or importance. That's why I needed to fill in the gap in one way or another by doing this experiment in hope of helping my students to be better.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, sir.
Now I request Dr. Dhoot Madam to please share her view on today's discussion and topic.
Okay, ma'am. Today's international e-conference topic is the importance of explicit teaching of communicative strategies. As we are all know that the English has the very important role in today's era, because English is the language of the world. We, for this purpose, communicative approaches play very important role in the teaching learning process. We all know that in technology word. We aware the English language because without English we can't communicate or we can't understand in this age. Hence, the communicative approach is very important. First of all, I give thanks to the keynote speaker, Dr. Haneen Adnan, madam. She explained all the factors related uh, this topic through systematically. She explains all the factors through her research work, and we are all have the opportunity hearing her in very systematically excellent manner. Explicit teaching involves directing student attention towards specific learning in a highly structured environment. Because in communicative approach, highly structured environment play very important role. Without highly structured environment, we can't use effectively communicative approach because teaching is bipolar or tripolar process. And in this process, if we want a student speak in English or they communicate in English, then structured environment is very structured environment play a very important role. It is a teaching that is focused on producing specific learning outcomes. Topics and content broken down into small parts and taught individually. It involves explanation, demonstration, and practice. The purpose of explicit is to provide information, to give instruction, to understand, and to applicable the knowledge for understanding purpose. Teacher gives an opportunity to their student to learn speaking strategies, to become more independent in language use, resolves communications problems, fluency speak, and have the opportunity to enhance speaking skill and employ in the conversation. Hence, this topic is more important in English language learning because without communicative language, without communicative approach, we are not speak English because we are the student of non-English ground. As a EFS, English foreign language, we learn English as a foreign language. Hence, this has become difficult to our parts to speak English fluently. And for this purpose, a very high, rich environment is very important. Teacher has to create such type of environment in the classroom. From that environment, students easily speak the English in the group of the student to each other. And in that way, speaking communication culture is developing by the teacher because teaching is not a one-side procedure. It is a teaching means the give and take communication, and hence three polar process is best for the teaching communicative approach. Thank you, ma'am, for your excellent guidance, and you are also solve the problems of our participants. I give thanks to all the participants, chief organizer Dr. Bedkar sir, and experts of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, Dut madam, for sharing your views on communicative approach because you know what are the problems related with our students because you have also gone through all these experiences and I think so you have shared your views very nicely. Thank you once again, Dut madam. Now yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today's resource person, Madam Haneen Adnan, Madam. her topic was the impact of the explicit teaching of communicative strategies on the ESL speaking proficiency. Because of the YouTube, I have reduced that article and title, and I requested madam to give explanation as per your topic. So it was only 30 minutes allowed, requested to her, but nearly more than 1 hour she is with us. I am thankful to the especially our today's resource person, because all mostly we are here teachers, and we are mostly related to the language teaching, and what the problems of language teaching can be solved with communication strategies on ESL speaking proficiency. You have very nicely explained systematically, also scientifically. You have made a group, you have done that experiment. Your result was also effectively, you have collected the results with your scientific study. So it was very nice discussion and nice topic for us, all the teachers. Those who want to do some work in their communication technology, means in English language or any other language, this can be used, this strategy. So thank you to you. You are from Lebanon, and we are very fortunate that there are so many resource persons. Those who have requested from Lebanon, they have accepted our request and they also joined. Being a teacher, you can also invited in future also with new topic if you wish to join here, because we are requesting all the resource persons to share their knowledge on educational topic to this dais. I am thankful to the respected principal Dr. Bhutt madam and organizer Vanita Ramteke madam, active participant Dr. Sahana Shukla sir, Giri sir, and others we have discussed here. We are so much happy that we are today learning so much about the English language, how we can create the environment there, how students can become more fluent in their language irrespective of their mother tongue and all these things. The tools which we have given here, they are useful to increase the fluency of the student. Thank you ma'am. You are again invited in future also. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. And for sure, it would be great you having me again as a keynote speaker to share my experience and to learn from you all. It was a pleasure presenting at your platform and being a keynote speaker. Thank you for this invitation again, and for all the participants and organizers.
One request, you have to smile, because you are so serious throughout the speech, because we need that speech picture to display on LinkedIn. All participants are requested to smile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful smile. Beautiful smile.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just being serious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, ma'am.
Sir, feedback
Thank you,
link,
sir.
please, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ramteke madam. You have arranged the good and excellent workshop.
Thank you, Ramteke madam.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you,
compliments and encouraging.
Thank you for their all staff.
And I
Yeah,
will,
thank you, Pawar sir.
I will communicate feedback to her in PDF. You can write your feedback in our feedback form. Thank you to you.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
थैंक यू पेटकर सर, आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप इसी तरह शाम को शाम
Thank you, sir.
कार्यक्रम
Thank you
को
so much.
निरंतर चलाते रहें, मैं ये कभी बंद ना हो और हम लोग इसी तरह लाभ लेते रहे। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर से आप लोगों को बुलाते हैं, मैम इतनी अच्छी बातें बताते हैं और आपसे कुछ जान पाते हैं। भले ही कभी कभी नेटवर्क की समस्या हमारे तरफ होती है, मैं ऑनलाइन नहीं जुड़ पाता हूँ कभी कभी गूगल मीट से, मगर आपने एक अच्छा साधन बनाया है सर। यूट्यूब पर लाइव होता है, आपका नोटिफिकेशन गिरते ही मैं कोशिश में रहता हूँ, टाइम जैसे ही होता है 7 बजता है कि नहीं आज जुड़ जाना है, टाइम पे जुड़ जाना है, तो ये अच्छा लगा। और ये नए नए चेहरे हर दिन आते हैं, मैम रिसोर्स पर्सन को तो मैं रियलिटी में मतलब क्या बोलूं, बहुत अच्छा लगा आज का भी कार्यक्रम। और कम्युनिकेशन से रिलेटेड कार्यक्रम था अम्बेडकर सर, और अच्छे तरीके से मैम ने समझाया। और मुझे लगता है कि आपने जो इतिहास बनाने का काम किया है सर, मुझे लगता है बिहार के कई लोगों ने आपके चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लिया है, मैंने देखा है। और जो लोग जो सब्सक्राइब किए हैं उसमें से आपके इसी में गुरुजी भी जुड़ते हैं, प्रोफेसर हैं पटना से, और वो शायद उन्होंने भी लिंक को शेयर किया था। और उन्हें जो रिसोर्स यहाँ रिसर्च स्कॉलर हैं उनको कई सारे विषय भी मिल पाए हैं जो ढूंढते हैं। तो आप सर ये महाराष्ट्र, सिर्फ महाराष्ट्र तक आप सीमित नहीं है, ये बहुत दूर तक चला गया है, ये बहुत बड़ी बात है। और जो क्या मैं बताऊं, अच्छा लगता है। अब आप लोग के बीच जो ले रहे हैं सर, ये मेरे लिए बहुत काबिले तारीफ की बात है। यहाँ जो सीखते हैं, जो जानते हैं, यहाँ इस सही ईमानदारी पूर्वक सारी बातों को जानना। भले मैं आपके कैंपस का विद्यार्थी नहीं रहा, मगर एक बात मैं बोलूंगा, पूरे कोरोना काल से ये मेरे लिए जो गूगल मीट है ना, किसी कैंपस से कम नहीं रहा। एक बॉक्स में एक तरह का चेहरा देख करके एक दूसरे का हाल चाल एक परिवार की तरह जानना, अपना एक बात को सुनना, ये मेरे लिए काबिले तारीफ की बात है। और गुरु, एक बात अंतिम में बोलना चाहूंगा सर, माँ बाप और गुरु से अच्छा कोई दोस्त लाइफ में हो ही नहीं सकता। मेरे लिए ये बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट है कोरोना ने दिया है कि मैंने दोस्तों को शाम को छोड़ दिया, मैंने दोस्तों को ही छोड़ दिया कि शाम में जो टहलने का काम था मैंने छोड़ दिया। मैंने आप लोग के बीच बैठ कर जो लिया है, वो शायद मैं अगर नहीं बैठ पाता तो मुझे ये सारी चीजें जो मेरे टंग है, जो मैं आज बोल पा रहा हूँ, ये मेरा बेहतर भी नहीं हो पाता। तो कम से कम मैंने इस बात को समझा है कि एक अच्छा श्रोता होने के बाद एक अच्छा वक्ता बनने की ख्वाहिश ही तभी रखी जा सकती है। तो अच्छा है कि मैं आप लोग का निरंतर मैं हर एक विषय के साथ सुनता रहूं और इसी तरह ज्ञान अर्जित करता रहूं और उसे मैं क्रियान्वित भी करूं धरातल पर। ये हमारी कोशिश रहेगी, क्योंकि वो सिर्फ ज्ञान तक सीमित ना रह जाए। ये बहुत बड़ी बात है सर। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर आपका। गुड नाइट।
बेटकर सर
Thank you,
तुमचं
sir.
खूप खूप अभिनंदन सर. तुम्ही एवढे चांगले प्राचार्य आहात, हायटेक प्राचार्य आहात. खरं म्हणजे तुमचं खूप कौतुक व्हायला पाहिजे आणि तुम्ही ज्या ठिकाणी जाल खरं म्हणजे त्या कॉलेजचं भाग्य पाहिजे. पण लोकांना तुमचं एवढं जे काही टेक्निकल बाब आहे ते लक्षात येत नाहीये. पण मी तुम्हाला खूप ऍप्रिशिएट करते सर की तुमच्या